Good morning everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to Green Side Up. Now this is the fourth and final part of how to start an allotment, because it is just basic info, enough to get you going and so you don't miss any of the massive pitfalls that can occur. I mean, you have to move things around later or change your plans when you realise what you may or may not have done. So as I say, this is part 4. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2 and 3, I highly recommend you go and have a look at them, especially if you're starting a new allotment plot or a veg garden in your back garden. And I'll put a link, it'll just be up here for a playlist for all 4 of these videos, so that you can go and find them all in one place and have a good look through them. Now in the previous 3 videos we've covered various things about right from the very start, from where you've been offered a plot and you go to have a look at it, and I was talking about questions you should ask and information you need to find out. I've talked about using online tools. One of them was to use historical aerial photography so that you could see what the site's been used for before, and another one was to use current aerial photography and mapping skills to determine where the sun will rise and set at any given time of the year, so that you can set up your allotment plot without putting things in the way of prime growing space later, i.e. creating shadows. We talked about ground cover and how you can use that as your best friend, how you can cover some ground to kill weeds off and clear that ground whilst you're digging and utilising another area. We talked about essential tools that you'll need to start off with, and how to measure yourself for the ideal raised bed size if you wanted to go that route. And then at the end of the last video we talked about having 4 big beds to start off with and using crop rotation, and I said I'd go more into that, and that's really what I want to discuss today. And then at the end of this video I'll show you some examples of how you can set out a plot and the things that really you need just to sort of finish things off for you, so that you can plant everything and get everything going. So we'll crack on with that now. So what is 4-bed rotation? Well, simply, first of all, it's 4 beds. That's pretty obvious, and keeping them all roughly the same size. And if you keep them in a big square or in a line or something, then it's easier to manage and know where you stand. Well, here's my take on what a 4-bed rotation is and where it comes from. Now, during the war, we all know, or most of us will know, about the Digging for Victory campaign. There was a massive shortage of food in this country during the Second World War, and land was allotted to people to grow food for their own family and also the community at large as well in some cases. So that land was allotted, therefore allotments were more wider spread than there had been before. There had been allotments going back in history hundreds of years, but on a much smaller scale. But that's where the allotments came from. Now at that time there was a lot of public information given out by the government, do this for the best results, and here's what you can do with a very small amount of ingredients, and how you can manage this. And they were utilising what they had at the time, so a lot of public information was given out. And they followed at the time what many farmers had done for centuries, which was a four field rotation system. And again, a lot of you will have heard of this, where a farmer will rotate around 4 fields, he'll grow crops in 3, and the 4th field he'll leave fallow for that year, and then that fallow field will move on next year, giving that field time to recover. And this is how I think, and where I think vegetable growing in its traditional sense of a 4-bed rotation has come from. So having said that, I think allotment holders then took that on, but they've used it to their advantage, and they've worked out over time the best crops to follow the next year after the crops they've grown the previous year. Now it sounds rather complicated, but what it involves in is double digging the ground at first to get the soil down to a good depth, tilled and usable. This provides good drainage, and at the same time as they're double digging it, they're digging in manure, which feeds the soil and feeds your plants. And that's been the way for, say, many decades now. And the heaviest feeding plants will go in that bed first, and the next year another crop will follow it that is more suited to the ground and the nutrition that's left in the soil. So every year you're utilising what that ground is, and the next year you'll move one bed over and you'll double dig and manure that bed. And so by a process of elimination, every 4 years the bed is getting thoroughly dug over, thoroughly manured, and then the incidental crops coming after it and following it around get treated in a different way. And this keeps your soil in reasonable health and keeps your pests down. Now, if you grow potatoes in the same plot year after year after year, you will take certain nutrients out of that ground, and if you don't put nothing back in, you will start to strip that ground. And there is a growing thought these days, and there are quite a few videos out about it now, that this is not entirely necessary, this crop rotation. But if you're first starting out in gardening or on an allotment, vegetable gardening, I think it's important myself that you do this 4-bed rotation. It teaches you many things. You will learn about pests, you will learn about digging, you'll learn about what is in your soil, how your soil should feel, what nutrition plants actually need as you change your crops and move them around. I think it's vitally important, and it's, even if you don't need to do it in years to come, it's vitally important to teach you and to learn for yourselves what plants actually need and what condition your soil needs to be in. I mean, for instance, there's another method now, no dig gardening, which is what I'm using outside in some places, and I'm expanding into again this next year, where you just put cardboard down to smother the weeds, compost on top, and you plant straight into that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You couldn't get much easier than that, and it is easy gardening. But I've got that foreknowledge of growing things in the ground. I can spot when a plant is suffering and what a plant actually needs and what is going on in the soil. So I have that idea already. I can even plant 2 crops the same year of the same type, which in traditional growing is a no-no. So I would advise, definitely, if you're starting off, go for 4-bed rotation. Look it up on the internet. There is tons of articles about it and tons of ways of doing it, but if you follow that, you won't go far wrong. And then in 3 or 4 years time, because it'll take you 3 or 4 years to set your allotment up and get it to a condition where you can start to make decisions, you can then change if you want to. You can change to not rotating your crops, you can change to no dig, you can change to whatever the heck you want to. But I think it's important to get that grounding knowledge first beforehand. Learn your soil, learn what your plants need, learn what to put in the soil and when, and how to treat pests and diseases, and how to spot them, and how to weed and hoe. All these things are skills that you're going to need moving forward. And if you learn it right from the word go, it's going to set you up for your future. You'll learn in the first couple of years, while you're setting up your plot, everything you need to know for moving forward. If you go straight in with another method, you're not necessarily going to learn those things, and you'll be blighted with problems and pest issues because you won't have come across them before, you won't have seen them before, you won't have protected them by preparing your ground in the right way. So this is very, very important to my mind. So that's my advice, is to go for a 4-bed rotation straight away, straight off the bat. You can diversify later. Okay, I've done a couple of quick sketches just to illustrate how an allotment plot can work for you. And first of all, I've drawn mine at the very, very start, when I only had half the plot I've got now. So here we go, here it is, and mostly the sun will rise over here and it will set way off over here, and it will arc around all the way around there. So what I've done is I've set up the 4-bed rotation. That's how I started, with paths in between, and around the edges and at the front there's beds there. Now these beds here, they're still there now, and they're 6 foot wide, and these are the front, are about 3 foot wide. This is important because you've got your crops that you're going to rotate in your 4-bed system, which is your veg, and every year there might be potatoes this year, potatoes next year, potatoes the year after, and you follow the crops around in there. But you still have other incidentals. You still have fruit trees, You might want to put a couple of apple trees and a pear and a plum and whatever else in there. And you've got fruit bushes, and you've got things like artichokes and rhubarb and asparagus. These are all perennial crops, and once they're in, they are in and they stay. And this is what your side beds are for. Also, they are for things like compost heaps, water barrels, any sort of storage that you need to store anywhere. And you also noticed I've left this big area up here because after that first year, or I think in the first year, I went and plonked a polytunnel here, I think it was, roughly there, and I put a shed at the back here. With the sun coming round, by the time it was getting round to here, it was virtually level in the sky, so it wasn't affecting anything here, but it was still catching them last rays of the sun. So as soon as it rose up here, because nothing was in the way, that was getting heat first thing in the morning to all day. That was getting full sun, and so was all the plot. Anything tall was in these beds, and the shed was shading nothing. So that's a rough example. So you not only need your 4-bed rotation, you need space for other things as well, and side beds are a good way to do it. Now, I appreciate that my plot is not the shape that many allotment plots are. There are many allotment plots that are sort of strip-like in shape, and that's this one here. So I would take it that that's the front of the plot. Here is your 4-bed rotation, and here is your side bed here. This is a pathway up in between, and here's your extra space where you might want to put a polytunnel or a shed or whatever. I mean, if your sun was arcing round the same as on my plot there, this would be no good for putting your fruit trees in, but you just simply take that strip bed and put it over here and have your 4 beds in front. So this is why it's important to just scribble it down like I have roughly here on paper. Put the arc of the sun in where it rises in the morning and where it sets in the evening at any given time of the year. I mean, that could be summer, and in winter it might be something like this. But as long as you know where the sun's coming from, you can plan where you're putting everything on your beds and work it out. You don't have to stick to 4 beds like that in a row. It could be still 4 beds in quarters like that, like on my plot. It's adaptable, and with the information you've got, you can best sort it out with a couple of bits of paper. If it doesn't work for you on paper, screw it up, start again. Just, you know, spend half an hour in front of the TV at night, scribbling it out with a pencil and a notebook, and work it out before you start. So that's my really final tip on this, really, is to get yourself organised. You've got all the tools at your disposal, you've asked all the questions, you've got the rough tools to start with, the ground cover, and the tools to dig with. You know a bit of information about crop rotation. You know you've got to look into that and work it out for yourself how best to employ that. I've given you all the tools and information that you need to start and get you to this stage if that's the way you want to go. But it's a good start, and as I say, that's all I've got for now on this, because I think any more will just completely overload you. So don't forget, keep it real, keep it small and as simple and as comfortable for you as you possibly can. And I wish you all the best success with it, and please do let me know in the comments how you're getting on with it. Come back and ask me questions, we'll get you sorted out. So the very best of luck to you with your new allotment plot. I know it's an exciting time and you can't wait, so brilliant. I'm over the moon for you that you've got one. Now, I have a special feature that I sometimes do on some videos called Question Time, where I answer anonymously questions that you may have. In every video I produce, in the video description, my email address is in there, and you can send me a question and I can either answer it directly on film, or I can just reply to your email and send it. This helps to save embarrassment. Sometimes people can't get around a simple thing for whatever reason it is, and they may find it embarrassing to ask the question. Just send it to me and I can do it anonymously for the benefit of all on a video where I won't mention your name, or I can just reply to your email. And I've helped countless people out doing that so far. So that facility is there, especially with this series of 4 videos of starting a new allotment. It's all new, it may all seem like a bit like Chinese to you, how these things are done. So if you've got a question, just ask it, and or you can ask it in the comments below, and that's pretty much it really. Thanks to all the new subscribers that are coming along, it's much appreciated. Don't forget to tell your friends, and if you're looking in and you're not a subscriber, then please do. I don't bite, I promise I won't. And that's it really. Please stay safe everyone, look after yourselves, and I'll see you in a couple of days on the next video. Ta-ra now.